If you've clicked on this video, chances are you want to get an A+ in all of your exams. You still want to study efficiently and get like the best grades of your life, but you want to do it in a way where you can still maximize your hobbies on the side and do those little things that the universities really love, like extracurriculars and other stuff. But here's the thing, even though I did get like decently good results, I was still able to play basketball, play volleyball, and even do content creation even during exam season because I knew how to study efficiently and save so much time. And I'm going to show you how you can study more efficiently so that you don't have to go through the pain that I did, because I searched for every single study method out there. I've literally tried so many different methods. I've tried the Pomodoro technique, I've tried highlighting, rewriting my notes, I've tried all of those study methods. So I want to show you what actually works. So the first thing that you need to know is active recall. Imagine you're being asked to learn how to shoot a basketball. Would you be on the bench, like sitting on the bench, like watching YouTube videos on how to shoot a basketball? No. You would be actually shooting the basketball into the hoop, right? Because it makes the most logical sense. But here's the thing, most students don't study like this. They don't actually like shoot the basketball. What they do is they literally just rewrite their notes, look at their notes, and just read through the textbook and watch YouTube videos. I promise you, this study method does not work. I've tried this myself, and when I try to like manifest like the information from the textbook, it literally does not work. Because I watched Andrew Huberman's 2-hour-long video, and the key takeaway was that you need to be learning through testing, because testing is what actually helps you remember the information. It offsets the forgetting curve. So with that being said, there are 3 active recall methods that I personally use to ace my exams. The first one is past papers. And look, past papers is literally the best single studying method out there, because what they tested you last year will be the exact same they tested you this year, just phrased a little bit differently, right? Like, you've probably seen the other past papers. The questions are pretty similar throughout like the last 10 years, right? Past papers is the best studying method. So if you just grind as many past papers as possible, I guarantee you will be able to gain the best marks on your exam. But here's a pro tip. Literally create like a Google Doc of like past paper questions that you couldn't understand or you just couldn't do. This method is called a error booklet, and I recently learned it from a friend of mine who was absolutely cracked in university. But I was unconsciously using this method in A-levels anyways. And I'm going to tell you right now, it literally works like a charm. The second active recall method is the Feynman technique. And the Feynman technique is basically where you explain a concept, like the quadratic formula, for example, or integration, or any other concept. And you just explain that, you're literally just explaining that to a person. And imagine that person is like a 5-year-old or someone who doesn't really understand the material. Maybe that person is like a friend, a newbie, whatever. But the key is you need to be able to simplify your explanation to a level that someone that doesn't understand the material can actually understand it. When you teach the information, you are subconsciously telling yourself whether you actually know this information or not. So by teaching other people, you're actually learning the information yourself. And look, you don't even have to do this with a real person. Literally grab like a notebook and a pen around you and walk around your room like you're giving a lecture or something like that. If you want, you could like even record it on your phone. But that's the Feynman technique. The third active recall method that you need to know is flashcards. And look, if you're taking high school exams, if you're taking the IGCSE or A-level exams, you need to be doing flashcards, because most of the high school stuff that you're being tested on is literally just memorizing and regurgitating. You don't want to be on the test and you look at this definition, like this 2-marker, and you're wondering, wait, what is this definition? You don't want that to happen, because you want to actually be saving your brain power to think in the exam, to focus on the higher mark problems instead of the lower mark definition problems. So you need to be able to knock these out of the park if you want to score higher marks. And personally, the best way I found to memorize these concepts is using flashcards. And I highly recommend this app called Remnote. Or if you want, you can do Quizlet or Anki, whatever floats your boat. But the reason why I really like Remnote is because it leverages this thing called spaced repetition, which I'm going to share you in the next tip. So the next thing you need to know is spaced repetition. So imagine your brain like a bucket, and imagine the information that you learn as the water that's being poured into the bucket. Now here's the thing, the bucket is actually kind of leaky, And so the water, the information flows out of your brain, and that rate represents the forgetting curve. And the only way to combat the forgetting curve is to use active recall. When you use active recall, it's like pouring the water into the bucket again. But here's the big catch. When you pour the water into the bucket again to the max, you actually patch the small hole in the bottom of the bucket. I know, it's really strange. But if you wait a couple of days and you pour in the water again, the hole actually gets smaller and smaller. And so spaced repetition is like spacing out your study sessions over a longer period of time so that you can actually put the information into long-term memory. Because once the hole in your bucket becomes so small, you know that information is going to be in long-term memory. And that's why cramming does not work, because you've not used spaced repetition at all. Imagine you're being coached on how to play basketball, right? You learn it for one day, but suddenly your coach asks you to play in the NBA. If I was that person, I would literally be like shivering my timbers, bro. And the reason why is because I just haven't put enough time to practice. So it's kind of the same logic with studying. If you study 24 hours, which I don't think that's even possible. If you study 24 hours and the next day you take an exam, you're going to have way less information recall than the person who studied 1 hour for 24 days straight consistently. The next thing that you need to know is optimized breaks. Because from what I've observed, and I'm literally in university right now, there are many people out there who still pull all-nighter marathons and expect that they can actually remember all of the information. That just doesn't work, because when you pull a study marathon, you're not taking any breaks and you're not giving your brain any time to relax. So imagine your focus level kind of like a battery. You know how in like Five Nights at Freddy's, in the bottom right corner, you have like a bar that says power. And if that power drops to 0, you're screwed. So I want you to imagine your focus like that. When you study 8 hours in a row, you're constantly draining that battery and you haven't given any chance for it to recharge. Because studies show that when you study with crappy focus, you're not going to be able to remember the information well. So the actionable step that you can literally use right now is to study using a timer. I recently learned something from Naval Ravikant. He said that if you wanted to work like a lion. You want to work with short sprints, but long periods of recovery. So I've recently been implementing that into my work sessions, and I find that I'm actually so much more productive. Another thing that you can use right now is called the non-sleep deep rest protocol. I learned this from Andrew Huberman, but it's one of the best recharging tools that you can have in your arsenal. And he even says that he uses it every single day. And once I've actually been using non-sleep deep rest, I find that my focus becomes supercharged. The last thing that you need to know is Parkinson's law. Imagine you have like a project due in 1 month from now. Chances are you're probably going to wait until the last week, or if you were like me, the last 3 days to complete the assignment. So what I used to do was I would procrastinate on the assignment until the very last 3 days. And I literally remember one day when I was literally drafting my English coursework just to submit to the teacher, and it was 11:30 p.m. and the assignment was due at 12. But one thing that I've noticed is that the work expands to fill the time that you actually give for it. So if you give yourself less time to do the work, you're actually going to do the work in less time. Because the amount of time that we think we need to do the work is not actually the amount of time we actually need to do the work. So if you just give yourself like 2 days or even 1 day to complete the homework assignment, you're literally going to finish in that 1 day. So if you implement this tip, you're actually going to become so much more efficient than all of the other students around you. Become a lifelong learner. But as always, may God guide us on the right path, and I'll see you in the next video.